So the DMV has two languages. The two languages are not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted, not leaking. The other language is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. To determine which one to use first, I say if you take a hammer and you crack, if you take a hammer and you hit this, it's plastic. What is it going to do? Is it going to crack or is it going to bend? It's plastic, so it's going to crack. So you would say, my coolant reservoir is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, and you want to say not leaking because there's fluids here. It's not leaking. Now, if I hit this right here, it's metal. With the hammer, it's going to bend. So my engine hose, not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. It's securely mounted. So those are the two languages that the DMV ask us to use with our parts and the different materials, which is, you know, plastic, metal, and then our wires. Any wires are not frayed, cut, or spliced. Wires are like this right here. Turn this camera around.
Anytime there's like some sort of like a container type thing, like this.
This is the ABS line, not frayed, cut, or spliced.
Same with this.
And for your ABS line, you get 3 points when you talk about the ABS line. Not frayed, cut, or spliced. It's securely mounted. Also, the hoses is rubber. So rubber is always no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Not leaking and securely mounted. Rubber is like this tire. Rubber is like this brake chamber clamp right here. No abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. It's securely mounted to this clamp. It's not leaking. So those are the different materials that I came on to explain and talk to you guys about. The rubber, the lines, the wires, the belt also not frayed, cracked, or damaged. The belt that I'm talking about is like the belt right here. Let's see. Right here. That belt not frayed, cracked, or damaged. Okay, so we talked about the belt, the ABS lines, any type of lines not frayed, cut, or spliced. We talked about the hoses is because it's rubber, no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Even the tires are rubber, so the tires will be no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Okay. And then the metal, not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. And then anything plastic, not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted. And then there's fluid, so you gotta say not leaking. Okay. Let's see, what else can I talk to you guys about? And then you want to talk about your suspension. The suspension, okay, the leaf spring. You want to say from this end to this end of my leaf spring, it's not shifted. If there was 25% missing on my leaf spring, I'm gonna have my truck towed to be serviced. And then your shock absorber, it would be not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. Also, you want to add not leaking and nothing wrapped around it. So DMV language, and then not leaking and nothing wrapped around it. So basically every part you have to add DMV language and then either not leaking or nothing wrapped around it, depending on the part. So the front tires are always called steering tires. These tires right here, they're in the front. Steering tires.
There's nothing leaking.
Your next tires, which are here, these are called your dual tires. 2 30-second tire tread, and then your steering tires are always 4 30-second. So your steering tires, which are on the front, 4 30-second tire tread. The air in the tire and your steering tires are 4 30-second. The steering tires cannot be recapped. They cannot be mismatched. They cannot be recapped. The air in the tire has to be 90 to 120 psi, unless it says differently on the manufacturer on the tire. Okay, you get 3 points when you talk about an air pressure gauge. You just throw it in the sentence, okay? Throw it in the sentence. I'll take my air pressure gauge to check my air in my tire. Like that, something like that. As long as they hear that keyword, air pressure gauge, they're gonna mark their box that you said it, and you're gonna get that credit. And then so your steering tires, 432, 90 psi to 120 psi air in the tire, unless it says differently on the tire. It's even. Remember, it's rubber, so you're gonna say no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Okay, and then the rim is DMV language, and all you gotta add is no rust trail. So my rim, it's not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted, no rust trail. Your lug nuts are all here in present, so you would talk about your lug nuts. You would use the language, DMV language, and say no rust trail and no shiny shavings. So this is how you would save it. My lug nuts are not bent, dent, broken, not missing. They're securely mounted, no rust, and no shiny shavings on them. So this is a hub axle seal. DMV language, not leaking. DMV language, securely mounted to the nuts and bolts. So this is how you would say it. My hub oil seal, not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted to the nuts and bolts. Okay, so, and it's not leaking. So since I involved the nuts and bolts, now you got to talk about your nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts are DMV language, not no shiny shavings and no rust. So my nuts and bolts, this is how you would say it. They're not bent, dent, broken, not missing. They're securely mounted, no rust or shiny shavings on them. To service my hub oil seal, I'll remove this rubber cap. So like I said, anything that have liquid in the container, you always want to say it's not leaking. For your hoses, you always want to say it's not leaking, because moisture, turns to liquid. So you always say it's not leaking, especially your water pump down here. Your water pump, it says water, so you want to say it's not leaking, okay? Your windshield. So basically you talk about all of your reservoirs. Reservoir means a container with liquid in it. Coolant, your windshield wiper fluid reservoir, your power steering reservoir. You just say them all the same. My coolant reservoir is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the nuts and bolts. If the fluids are low, I'm going to service it where this cap is. Now, okay, you have to talk about the body of it individually and talk about the cap individually. So the cap is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. Both of them, you have to say not leaking, okay? So when you see your washer fluid reservoir, you say the same thing. Not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. If the fluids are low, I'm gonna service it where the cap is. Okay, so the cap gets its own language. The cap is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. Your other power steering reservoir, you have to say the same thing. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. If the fluids are low, I'm going to service it where the cap is. The cap, individually, they get their own. The cap is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. Okay? So if you see a reservoir, you should be saying not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted. If the fluids are low, that's how you bring in the cap. The cap is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. So they're both individually not leaking. They both individually get the DMV language. Not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. That's it. They both not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not leaking. Except the reservoir, you want to say, if the fluids are low, I'm going to service it where the cap is. That's how you bring in that cap. That's how you introduce the cap to the examiner at the DMV. That's how you're going to bring it in, okay? And just remember that A is always going to be the hardest. After A, B and C is going to be easy because A has all the parts that repeat itself for B and C. And I guarantee you're going to memorize everything because it's something you want. This is something that you want, so it's gonna happen. The paper makes it seem harder, but if you know it's easier to just learn your DMV language and then learn the parts. Either one, whichever works for you. Some people want to learn the parts first and then learn the language to create their flow. It's like a wrap. Not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted. My hoses, no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts, securely mounted to the clamps. I'll check all my hoses like I did this one. My brake chamber, it's not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted to the clamp. That clamp is not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. Bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. You're just saying it over and over and over and over, okay? Not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. Not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted. It's simple, it's easy. At first it may seem a little challenging, but as soon as you learn the flow, not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted, not bent, dent, broken, not missing, securely mounted. You don't have to move fast like everybody else. You don't have to move slow like everybody else. You just want to move smart. Move. You be the flow, okay? What we working towards is for you to graduate the first time you take your test at the DMV. So you don't have to move fast. You want to move smart, okay? Comment below if you have any questions or any questions. There's no dumb question. If you don't ask the question, you need those answers, and I have the answer, and if I don't, we'll figure it out together. Until then, take care.